Another year in the books. So I thought I'd recap some of the events of 2019 for posterity. This will also be on BitChute, so I'll post a link to my BitChute account below. With YouTube these days, you never know. So, alright, here we go. Alright, 2019 started out with this. Trump signs the Asia Reassurance Initiative Act of 2018, which establishes a multifaceted U.S. strategy to increase U.S. security, economic interests, and values in the Indo-Pacific region. Which is fancy talk for Operation Contain China. China lands world's first lunar rover on the dark side of the moon. Well, I guess nobody else has ever done this, which is quite an achievement for them. And no, I'm not going to get into the moon landing hoax that allegedly took place in the 60s, so don't go there. China tests mother of all bombs. Ooh. And now it's Poland's turn to kidnap Huawei executives. First Canada, now Poland. And they're both US vassals, so this isn't very surprising. Remember the government shutdown? Well, this one was the longest in US history. So, USA, USA, USA. Iran's Press TV news anchor Marzia Hashemi kidnapped by U.S. officials. Yeah, that's real classy, man. And a false flag in Syria, which killed 4 U.S. soldiers. Yeah, see, Trump last year said he was going to pull troops out of Syria. Well, it didn't happen. Operation Regime Change Venezuela was underway. Yeah, I mentioned a year ago that President Maduro was going to drop the US dollar. And, well, as you might expect. And even Canada endorses this clown right here as President of Venezuela. Yeah, just make him president, even though he's never won an election or even ran in one in Venezuela. And most Venezuelans have never heard of this dude. But he's president of Venezuela because the U.S. State Department said so. However, China, Russia, and Turkey don't share those same views. And the hits just keep coming in this new Cold War between the U.S. and China. See, China blocks Microsoft's Bing search engine. They also blocked YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter from their country, so that's pretty funny. American universities blacklist Huawei. Canada receives formal request to extradite Huawei executive right after slapping more fake charges on her. And Huawei asks suppliers to move production out of U.S. Europe launched a swift alternative to send money to Iran. This was an attempt to get by U.S. sanctions on Iran, and it turned out to be a huge flop. But I'll get into that later in the video. NFL lawyer who claims Super Bowl is rigged found dead. Ooh, what a coinkydink, huh? Yeah, you know, professional sports is rigged. Yeah, it's rigged for television ratings and high-level gamblers who make money off of betting on games they know or even control the outcome of. Oh, yeah. So yeah, sports is reality television, okay? You're not watching an organically played sporting event. And yeah, I was a bit of a sports nut back in the day, so this would explain a lot of funny stuff I've noticed over the years of watching sports. U.S. formally withdraws from the INF Treaty. And Russia decided to do the same. I mean, might as well. And China's CGTN America forced to register as a foreign agent. No surprise there. U.S. national debt tops $22 trillion. Yeah, nothing makes America great like putting it further and further in debt, huh? U.S. airstrikes hit decade high in Afghanistan. That's it. Keep bombing and bombing and bombing and bombing. Trump declares national emergency over border wall. And he also establishes a space force. Zimbabwe introduces new currency, scraps US dollar equated bond notes. Ooh, the Khazarians are not going to be happy about this. China indefinitely bans Australian coal. Yeah, Australia has been doing a lot of hit pieces on China, so I'm guessing this is a retaliation for that. Russia creating their own internet. Good for them. Oh, this is funny. The US military was forced to blow up their own drone because it was hacked by Iran. And the usual folks try to do another false flag and blame it on Venezuela. But, it didn't work. And Russia's reserves fully cover nation's internal and foreign debt for the first time. Congratulations, Russia. Third most powerful Vatican official found guilty of child rape. Well, anyone who's really paid attention wouldn't be surprised by this. And here's your gender equality right here. Male-only draft unconstitutional. Federal court paves way for women's compulsory military service. Oh yeah, the India and Pakistan went at it. And Pakistan even shot down at least one Indian aircraft. US forces in eastern Syria made gold for safe passage deal with Daesh. So basically what this means is that the US military allowed ISIS fighters to go free in exchange for the gold that they stole. And as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu indicted for corruption. And he usually takes his mad out on Palestinians. Canada to allow extradition of Huawei CFO to the US. And she's rightfully suing Canada for that. And of course, 2 Canadian spies were charged with espionage in China. Washington's false flag attempt in Venezuela failed, so they resorted to cutting off the power, causing a blackout in Venezuela. Democrats vote to give illegal immigrants the right to vote. Sorry, but you don't get to complain about Russian interference in your elections when you do this, okay? And I think I've mentioned this last year, but China has been buying up gold like there's no tomorrow. And this is another reason for all the hit pieces on China. And then there's the measles scare tactics. Ask anyone who grew up in the 50s and 60s and they'll tell you that they survived the measles. And yet people act like it's the Black Plague or Ebola or something. False flag alleged shooting in New Zealand. Which eventually led to this. As if guns have the uncanny ability to hypnotize people into committing mass murder. Trump administration imposes visa ban on ICC staff probing U.S. war crimes. Yeah, this is what the USA does best. Blackmail. Monsanto loses again. U.S. court finds Monsanto's Roundup herbicide caused second man's cancer. China stops buying Canadian canola. Not that I personally would recommend canola anyways, but... Italy becomes the first G7 nation to sign up for China's One Belt, One Road. Yeah, this ruffled some feathers, man. Russiagate ends. Mueller finds no Russia collusion. I've been saying this all along. Yet, amazingly, people still believe the Russiagate nonsense. U.S. recognizes Israeli sovereignty over Golan Heights. Yeah, Golan Heights is a part of Syria that Israel's been illegally occupying since the 70s. And Genie Oil has a huge stake in Golan Heights, so there's that. America's Rukban concentration camp in southern Syria. 40,000 held hostage. That's right, a concentration camp run by U.S. forces. How not unlike Nazi Germany. U.S. approves secret sale of nuclear tech to Saudi Arabia. So it's okay for head-chopping, terrorist-supporting Saudi Arabia to have a nuclear program, but not Iran, who's never attacked anyone since the 18th century. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Russian banks join Chinese alternative global payment system. Yeah, this is why Russia and China are listed as adversaries in America's national security strategy. Canada has a carbon tax. That's nice. U.S. halts F-35 equipment shipments to Turkey over S-400 deal. Turkey bought Russian air defense systems, and because of that, Turkey has been removed from America's F-35 fighter jet program. More on this later. And it wasn't a good year for Boeing. Well, something I don't report very often. Americans doing something right. You know, people don't realize that if these vaccination shots they push on us were really all that great, there wouldn't be so many people refusing to take them. Okay, something that is legitimately good for us sells itself. Okay, you wouldn't need to mandate them because no one would refuse to take them. It's just like GMO foods. If they were really good, they'd be flying off the shelves and companies would be glad to label them as the demand would be very high. It's just common sense, which isn't very common anymore. U.S. Marines evacuate personnel from Tripoli as Libyan army advances towards capital. Yeah, civil war in Libya. And the U.S. designated the Iranian military as a terrorist organization. Well, maybe somebody ought to designate the U.S. military as a terrorist organization. Okay, that would be more accurate. Netanyahu re-elected as Israeli Prime Minister. Hey, Julian Assange arrested. Wonder if Rothschild will bail him out this time. And the International Criminal Court drops Afghan war crimes case thanks to U.S. blackmail. See, I told you that's what the USA does. Turkey and Russia create a $1 billion joint investment fund. Ooh, NATO won't be happy about this. And the Notre Dame Cathedral fire in Paris. Yeah, some nifty artwork was torched in the fire. Well, except 16 statues that were removed 4 days before the fire. Gee, what are the odds, huh? And at the same time, a mosque fire in Jerusalem. Trump vetoes congressional resolution to end U.S. support for Saudi-led war in Yemen. Well, this is not a shocker. Hey, Google disabled Press TV's YouTube channel. Yeah, Press TV is an Iranian news outlet. Hey, Vladimir Zelensky wins Ukraine. And a terrorist attack in Sri Lanka left multiple hundreds dead. And the U.S. sanctions Venezuelan foreign minister. Gee, how can you sanction a country's top diplomat? And that's pretty low. Okay, I mean, banning them from your country is one thing, but sanctioning them? Really? You know, Russia decided to give citizenship to people living in Ukraine's Donbass region. Real smooth, Vladimir. Real smooth. In fact, so smooth that he decided to extend that to other Ukrainians. And China hosted their Belt and Road Forum, which ended with more support and more deals. You gotta love this last part thrown in there by this obviously anti-China news outlet. And speaking of China, they sentenced a Canadian drug trafficker to death. Yeah, Russia, largest buyer of gold in the first quarter of 2019, and China, second. So yeah, both of them are buying gold like there's no tomorrow. Putin signs the controversial internet law. Yeah, this would allow Russian authorities to isolate the country's internet. And Israel murdered Palestinians again. It seems like every couple of months or so they're doing this. Iran reduces commitment to voluntary nuclear deal provisions. And you can thank the U.S. pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal for this. US raises tariffs on China. And China retaliates by slapping tariffs of their own. Russia has reduced their military spending to the point where they're not in the top 5 anymore. Unpublished OPCW report implies chemical attack in Syria's Douma was staged. No, gee, you think? I've been saying this since the get-go. Bayer ordered to pay $2 billion in Roundup damages. Monsanto loses again. U.S. law enforcement seized the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, and they illegally evicted activists that set up camp there. And the whole tanker wars going on in the Persian Gulf. U.S. accuses Iran of attack on Saudi tankers. That's right, blame Iran. Don't blame Russia this time, blame Iran. Trump bans U.S. companies from using foreign tech posing national security risk. And this led to this. Huawei affiliates placed on U.S. trade blacklist over national security concerns. Yes. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte threatened to declare war on Canada if we didn't take our garbage back. Yeah, see, we were supposed to send recyclables to the Philippines for processing. Yeah, that was the deal. Instead, we sent regular household trash, I assume by accident. Now, the Philippines eventually sent them back, just in time for the Canada Day long weekend, too. How nice of them. The dancing Israelis. FBI docs shed light on apparent Mossad foreknowledge of 9/11 attacks. Yeah, this crucial detail really ought to be mentioned more often when talking about 9/11. The war on Huawei continues. Google cuts ties with Huawei following trade blacklisting. Britain's largest cell phone networks drop Huawei phones from 5G launch. Microsoft drops Huawei. So does Toshiba. Wow, man. This reminds me of the Novichok hoax in the UK blamed on Russia last year, which got so many Russian diplomats expelled from so many different countries. Yeah, see, Huawei made phones that the NSA can't hack into. Trump lifts tariffs on Canadian and Mexican steel and aluminum. That's nice. India re-elects Modi, while British Prime Minister Theresa May resigns. Boris Johnson takes her place. Trump bypasses Congress to approve $8 billion in arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Yes, keep arming Saudi Arabia. The body count in Yemen just isn't high enough. And now it's China's turn to be blamed for election meddling, this time in Indonesia. Oh, what a world we live in. Chinese military ditching Microsoft Windows. Oh, this is funny. This is really funny. Good for them. Kosovo forces raid Serb majority areas. Gee, I wonder if that had something to do with this. Serbia intensifies cooperation with Huawei despite US ban. See, you're not supposed to make deals with Chinese companies, Serbia. Bad, Serbia, bad. I'm kidding. Way to give USA the middle finger. Right, don't forget what they did to your country back in the 1990s. Trump slaps tariffs on Mexico again. 11 killed in shooting at Virginia Beach Municipal Center. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the next remake of the same movie. Journalists with Chinese state broadcaster CGTN in U.S. denied passage to cover Congress. Yeah, this is the land of the free, home of the brave for you. Yeah, see, at least Eastern countries are more honest about themselves. Every sport you love could be fixed. Yeah, like I said earlier, these games are rigged. Never forget Canadian genocide of Native Indians. Gee, whatever happened to diversity is our strength? Hey, aren't indigenous people members of PeopleKind as well? YouTube to ban hateful videos and channels, which is another way of saying they're gonna censor videos and channels that speak too much truth. Thailand elects a new prime minister 5 years after overthrowing a U.S. puppet, so congratulations, Thailand. Russia and China agree to bilateral trade in national currencies. Gee, what did you expect was going to happen? And Huawei signs deal to develop 5G in Russia. Now Russia's getting into 5G. And these guys better know what they're doing. That's all I'm saying. And Facebook cracks down on Huawei. Wow, the witch hunt continues. China uses Great Firewall to block Washington Post and Guardian websites. Yeah, so the USA is getting a taste of their own medicine. And, of course, the beginning of the Hong Kong protests. You know, don't you find it odd that the same people who are attacking America's First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights, as well as attacking parental rights in the USA, are all of a sudden so concerned about protesters in Hong Kong? Okay, how's that not a red flag to people who claim to be awake? Okay, I mean, as I explained in a previous video, this is really a US-China proxy war. CIA agents have manipulated these useful tools into committing acts of violence. You know, vandalism, arson, assault, the list goes on. All in the name of freedom and democracy. It's the same playbook used in other countries for decades. Okay, this is nothing new. Anyway, the idea behind this is to provoke a violent response from preferably the Chinese military. They're hoping to use these images and footage of Chinese soldiers slaughtering these poor, innocent protesters to further destroy China's image, you know, slap sanctions, start boycott campaigns, maybe even militarily invade. For the longest time, China hasn't fallen for it, but they'll keep trying. And the sooner these people realize that they're being set up by their American and British puppet masters, the better. But I'm not holding my breath. A false flag tanker attack blamed on Iran. And because of this, a vote to ban arms sales to the Gulf was reversed. India slaps tariffs on U.S. goods. Israel renamed Golan Heights Trump Heights. Like I explained earlier, Golan Heights is stolen Syrian land. Facebook announces its new cryptocurrency, the Libra. And Russia chips away at U.S. debt holdings, dumping another $1.6 billion in treasuries. The Iranian military shot down a U.S. drone. You know who weren't happy about this. And they wanted to retaliate, but Trump called it off. Oh, by the way, the bees are dying, didn't you know? And without the bees, there goes 80% of our food. Mysterious deaths in the Dominican Republic. China has started to microchip their own weapons. And speaking of China, the U.S. blacklists Chinese supercomputers. Honduras military police shoot students in university campus. Yeah, while the whole world is freaking out over Hong Kong, what about Latin American countries like Honduras? Of course, they get ignored. And more on Latin America later. China stops all meat imports from Canada. South African genocide continues. Media refuses to cover it. White farmers over there are being violently evicted from their land. And China continues to buy Iranian oil despite U.S. sanctions. And Trump became the first U.S. president to enter North Korea. Here's something you won't see in our fake news media. Residents rallied to support Hong Kong police. And Israel attacks Syria again. British Marines seizes an Iranian oil tanker. So, yeah, the tanker wars continue. Russian sailors averted planetary catastrophe during nuclear submarine accident. And a new prime minister in Greece. U.S. Navy and Lockheed Martin officially introduced directed energy weapons in the warfare. They've had this for a long time. First part of S-400 system hardware delivered to Turkey. 2 years ago, Turkey bought Russian air defense systems, which is like an unpardonable sin for NATO countries. And because of this, White House kicks Turkey out of F-35 program. EU agrees to sanction Turkey. Turkish diplomat killed in Iraq's Erbil. Sea pirates kidnapped 10 Turkish sailors off Nigeria. Yeah, just a coincidence, I'm sure. Huawei forced to lay off workers in the US due to US blacklisting. China cuts business ties with US firms involved in selling arms to Taiwan. And the tanker wars continue. Iran seizes 2 British tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Oh yeah, Japan and South Korea got into a bit of a spat. Yeah, they're still feeling sore over what happened in World War II. And the IAEA chief mysteriously dead. More than likely a Mossad hit job, since he's been acknowledging the fact that Iran's been complying with the Iran nuclear deal. Oh yeah, and the Puerto Rico governor resigns. U.S. Guatemala signs safe third country asylum agreement. This is part of Trump's immigration policy. Huawei launches first 5G smartphone in China. Oy. And another remake of the same movie. New York fire commissioners call for a new 9/11 investigation, citing overwhelming evidence of explosives. Oh, I doubt this will go anywhere, even though it should. Hey, first they sanctioned Venezuela's foreign minister, now they do the same with Iran. Robert F. Kennedy's granddaughter dead in apparent overdose at family compound. Oy, that family's cursed. FBI classifies conspiracy theories as domestic terrorist threat. But they're just theories, remember? Oh yeah, another CIA-funded protesting, this time in Moscow. Oh yeah, remember the El Paso alleged shooting at a Walmart? That was followed by another alleged shooting in Ohio. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the back-to-back horror shows. No animals were harmed in the filming of these events. Kashmir on lockdown. India strips Muslim majority region of autonomy. Troops move in. So there's a military dictatorship set up on that part of Kashmir, and this caused Pakistan to expel an Indian diplomat. Some bad blood between those two. Trump calls for red flag laws to stop dangerous individuals from buying guns. What a strange way to fight the deep state. China is designated a currency manipulator. While China suspends purchases of U.S. farm products, U.S. agencies are banned from doing business with Huawei and other Chinese tech companies. Meanwhile, an embargo has been placed on Venezuela. A U.S. official caught meeting with Hong Kong protest leaders. So the U.S. State Department busted. Turkey received $1 billion bailout from China. The Jeffrey Epstein alleged suicide. About 20,000 joined authorized rally in central Moscow. See? Russia allows protests. Another show, this time in Philadelphia. Japan overtakes China as top foreign holder of U.S. treasuries. Honduran students demand resignation of President JOH. So where's the support for Honduran protesters, huh? Higher fluoride levels during pregnancy may be linked with lower IQ scores in kids. Harvard did a similar study which showed the same results. I've said it before, there's no substitute for brushing, flossing, and a diet with less sugars and processed junk if you want healthier teeth. Syrian army declares full control over Khan Shaykhun after a short battle. Khan Shaykhun was the site of a hoaxed chemical weapons attack which got the US Navy to bomb an airbase in Syria's Homs province. I've showed this in a previous video and I'm going to show it again. People attempting to show truth about what's happening in certain places, like Hong Kong, for instance, get censored. Restrictions in place to prevent march by pro-freedom groups in Kashmir. Like I said, a military dictatorship in the Indian part of Kashmir. Oh look, Kashmir is fighting back. The Amazon fires. I'm really bored of this. Hezbollah blows up an Israeli military convoy. Nice. Israeli rights groups demand Israel stops arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine. What? Israel, Jews arming neo-Nazis? It can't be. It just can't be. China signs a huge oil investment deal with Iran. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam withdraws the extradition bill that got everyone so fired up. A necessary evil, I suppose. San Francisco brands the NRA a domestic terrorist organization. Colombian police attack students during peaceful campus protest, but yet Hong Kong gets all the attention? Major university study finds fire did not bring down Tower 7 on 9/11. The third building that went down even though no planes crashed into it? Russia and Ukraine do a prisoner swap. It's encouraging. US proudly admits to bribery and extortion of Iranian oil tanker captains. It's just what I said before. They blackmail people. They try to bribe them, and if that doesn't work, threaten them. Human Rights March ends in police repression in Chile. But yet Hong Kong gets all the attention, but not Latin American countries. Have you noticed that? Trump fires John Bolton. Good. Don't let the door stop you on the way out. Iran, Russia, coordinating their payment systems. Ooh, this won't make you-know-who happy. Yes. A Saudi Arabian oil facility was bombed by Yemen's Houthi rebels. But blame Iran since they don't want to admit A, the Patriot missile system sucks, and B, a rebel group from the poorest country in the Middle East was able to pull this off against the richest country in the Middle East. But it's all Iran's fault, Osama bin Laden's son killed in U.S. operation. Yes, the Greta Thunberg psyop. Child exploitation right here. How dare they? Seriously, if anyone stole her childhood, it's the lobbyists that put her up to this. And also, climate change is completely natural. We are not causing the climate to change. We're polluting our planet, yes, but we're not causing climate change. The climate is changing because the Earth is changing. It's that simple. Okay? Earth goes through phases. I mean, did the Ice Age end because there was so much CO2 emissions? Was there an industrial age back then? Look, don't get me wrong, I'm all for environmentally friendly everything. Yeah, I just don't agree with using the climate change scare to get that point across. Protests in Lebanon. The People's Republic of China celebrated their 70th anniversary, and they displayed an impressive collection of military hardware, including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, air defense systems, UAVs, stealth fighter jets, the list goes on. Plus their song and dance performances were very impressive. And check this out. See, this is an aerial view. And look at that. These are not lights. These are people holding signs that reflect light. Oh yeah, I can't imagine how much time they spent rehearsing these things. They ought to be congratulated. State of emergency declared in Ecuador amid mass protests. Again, another Latin American country ignored for Hong Kong. Okay. So, are we gonna get free Ecuador? And look at this. Even the Ecuador president was forced to flee the capital. Martial law unfolding in Iraq. And another protest, this time in Iraq. Oh yeah, Turkey's invasion of northern Syria, aka Operation Peace Spring, begins. Turkey got a lot of heat for this, man. And while U.S. troops are headed to Saudi Arabia to do what their Patriot missile systems could not do. The China NBA PSYOP. Houston Rockets gear no longer available on big Chinese e-commerce sites. All because the Houston Rockets general manager posted on Twitter his support for Hong Kong protesters. Okay, see, I understand freedom of speech and all. However, in business, it's just not smart to anger your customers, okay? I mean, of course, the NBA tried to make peace with the Chinese market over this, which ended up angering the U.S. customers. So, you know, it's all just capitalism. You know, the very thing that's the opposite of socialism. I'm not a fan of either system, so don't get that idea. I think what they were trying to do here is create the idea that China is invading American culture and that they need to be stopped. Yeah, I think that's what this China NBA PSYOP was about. Russian military police, Syrian army deployed in Manbij after U.S. troop withdrawal. So Turkey's Operation Peace Spring has caused U.S. troops to basically tuck tail and run. Hey, I'm not blaming them. Nope, not blaming them at all. It's not like they were in Syria for the right reasons, so it's only natural that they would exit stage right after Turkey came barking. And the Syrian army used this opportunity to recapture some lost real estate during the war. Okay, they entered Raqqa City for the first time since 2014. They entered Kobani, and a bunch of other places too. Military police deployed as 500,000 Catalan independence protesters shut down Barcelona. So Catalonia wants independence. Now, if Washington supports Hong Kong independence, Taiwan independence, Tibet independence, Xinjiang independence, Kurdistan independence, surely they would support Catalonians, right? Right? Chile declares state of emergency. Subway service suspended as violent protests spread. So just like in Hong Kong, only difference is pro-democracy freedom fighters in Chile are not getting the support from Washington that Hong Kong is getting. Which goes to show America's double standards. Trudeau re-elected as Canadian Prime Minister. He lost a popular vote though, just like Trump lost a popular vote. But that don't matter now, does it? Syrian army and Russian military police to deploy on border. Putin and Erdogan reach historic agreement on northeastern Syria. What this means is Turkey has stopped bombing northern Syria. So the US-backed Kurds have been saved from total annihilation at the hands of Turkey. And it wasn't America that saved them. Oh no, it was Russia and Syria that saved the Kurds. See, this is a lesson to those protesting in Hong Kong. When America is through using you, they'll throw you away, just like they did the Kurds. Only Russia and Syria won't be rescuing you. Evo Morales wins Bolivian presidential election. Oh, this is not who the Khazarians wanted to win. More on this later. Yeah, I mentioned her last year, Maria Butina. Yeah, she's finally been allowed to return home after being subjected to CIA torture. U.S. is looting Syrian oil fields to fund mercenaries and intelligence operations. So the USA does what it does best, stealing. ISIS leader al-Baghdadi was killed in U.S. operation in Syria's Idlib. So this is a remake of the fake Osama bin Laden assassination all those years ago. Yeah, I'm guessing this guy has either outlived his usefulness to the CIA or they faked his death. Personally, I'm leaning towards the second one. Even Russia agrees with me. Lebanese Prime Minister Hariri resigns. For real this time. Turkish and Russian forces conduct first joint patrol in northeast Syria. Part of the deal that was made between Putin and Erdogan. Russia, China, and India to set up alternative to SWIFT payment system. Ooh, the Khazarians are pulling their hairs out over this. Total U.S. debt surpasses $23 trillion for the first time. USA, USA, USA! U.S. announces Blue Dot Network to compete with China's Belt and Road. Didn't I just show this? You're how many trillions of dollars in debt? And you think you could do this? Okay. China announces development of 6G. Oh man. Well, the CIA has successfully regime changed Bolivia. Okay, I mentioned earlier that Evo Morales won the Bolivian election, and now he's forced to resign because of traitors within the police and military. And look at this. Bolivian coup comes less than a week after Morales stopped multinational firm's lithium deal. So yeah, Bolivia is rich in lithium, and Morales was going to nationalize the lithium in his country. So now he's exiled to Mexico. And this puppet right here swore herself in as interim president. Founder of the White Helmets found dead. The White Helmets are Al-Qaeda given a facelift and pretending to be humanitarian aid workers when the cameras are rolling. And this dude right here is British intelligence. So I'm guessing they silenced him because he knew too much. Hey, is the U.S. State Department going to support these protesters? Hey, CIA-backed rioting, this time in Iran. Hong Kong protesters, seized a university in Hong Kong and basically turned it into a weapons factory. Yeah, Washington was hoping for Tiananmen Square 2.0 with this latest tactic, so they can further destroy China's image. But they didn't get it. This siege ended without bloodshed, so China wins again. But wait, here's their consolation prize. U.S.-funded Hong Kong opposition won district elections, which goes to show that Hong Kong, China, is more democratic than people give them credit for. Hey, protest in Colombia. Again, Latin American protesters don't get the same support as Hong Kong. Yeah, this alleged Chinese spy who defected to Australia and is now offering to reveal some of China's deep, dark secrets. Well, it turns out he's an ex-con who was arrested in Shanghai for fraud. And, well, he still is a fraud. And Trump signs the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, which I call the Attack China Act. Okay, this enables Washington to sanction basically any Chinese official they don't like, under the guise of protecting human rights in Hong Kong. And this also enables them to remove Hong Kong's special trade status whenever they want to, really. This would damage Hong Kong's economy. And China retaliated by blacklisting certain American non-governmental organizations that are getting George Soros money, including the National Endowment for Democracy. It's about time they did this. The London Bridge false flag. Russia's Power of Siberia pipeline opens for the first time. And it extends to China. Russia taps into their natural gas reserves and gets to sell them to a very lucrative Chinese market. Yeah, this is a big win for Russia as they attempt to establish themselves as the energy hub of Eurasia. And China wins here as well. With Russian natural gas, China can start to phase out their coal consumption, which would help solve their air pollution problem. Neo-Nazis supporting Hong Kong protests. Gee, what a shocker. See, when you have these people supporting you, that should tell you right there that you're on the wrong side. Mainland Chinese students best in the world. Now, I hope you can see this. Yeah, this is reading, math, and science. And as you can see, mainland China is king in all three of these key subjects. Wow, if this is what so-called Chinese propaganda produces, that's pretty impressive. And NATO considers China an adversary. Now, what exactly is China doing that has NATO so worried? Last I checked, China isn't that close to the North Atlantic. More mass shootings, this time at U.S. Navy bases. Hey, what's up with this? Now, for those of you who think I should be supporting the Hong Kong protests, I support this Hong Kong protest. There, happy now? Speaking of protests, France has been hit with them. So, are we going to get a France Human Rights and Democracy Act? Or even Free France? Russia's been banned from international sporting events. More sore loser tactics from the Anglo-Zionists. China will remove US technology from government computers. Smart move. Another horror show, this time in Jersey City. And the new NAFTA has been signed. Soon-to-be ex-Bolivian President Evo Morales granted asylum in Argentina, while Bolivia becomes a military dictatorship. Boris Johnson wins the UK elections. And protests in India over a citizenship law where India will grant citizenship to migrants from neighboring countries who are not Muslim. So there's a bit of discrimination going on there. It got pretty ugly too. So, are we going to see in India Human Rights and Democracy Act? Fight for democracy! Free India! Documents show that successive US governments knew they were fighting an unwinnable war in Afghanistan. The thing is, they were never there to win a war. They were there to occupy and pillage the place under the guise of fighting terrorism. That's why they're in Afghanistan. And also to contain Russia, China, and Iran. Virginia activates official militia in response to gun confiscation threats. Lawmakers want to make this a felony. Ooh, a civil war in Virginia, perhaps? Free Virginia! U.S. House votes to impeach Trump for abuse of power, obstruction of Congress. Ooh, enjoying this show yet? Tune in next year to find out what happens. A terrorist attack in Moscow. A record 9,300 stores closed across the U.S. in 2019. Yeah, nothing says make America great again like setting a record number of store closures. USA, USA, USA! Trump approves sanctions against Russia-Europe gas pipeline. Wait, I thought Trump was a Putin puppet. Why would a Putin puppet slap sanctions against a Russian pipeline? Worst Putin puppet ever. Hey, Russia, China, and Iran hold joint military exercises in the Gulf of Oman. Yeah, big middle finger to the Khazarians. Senior OPCW official ordered to delete traces of reports on Duma chemical attack. Yeah, you remember the hoax chemical weapons attack in Syria back in 2018? Yeah, so the OPCW were blackmailed into falsifying their report on that alleged incident, so... what can I say? U.S. Embassy in Baghdad besieged as Iraqis set building on fire. Well, this is what happens when you meddle in other countries' political affairs. Or in this case, mass murder Iraqi soldiers over a false flag attack that you set up. Oh, what did you expect was going to happen? You know, it wouldn't surprise me if this was the plan all along, but, you know. And I thought I'd end it off with this. Chinese banker who embezzled 108 million US dollars handed a death sentence. So this is what China does to corrupt bankers. They execute them. Whereas in the USA, corrupt bankers get bailed out. Now, for some of you who are thinking, why am I pro-China? I'm not really pro-China. I'm simply supporting their right to defend themselves against attacks, smears, and false allegations. And there's been no shortage of those. And I've done the same for Russia, Syria, Iran, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, and I will do the same for any country that's under Khazarian attack. I'm anti-Khazarian mafia, not pro-China. Now, are there things about China that I dislike? Yeah, plenty. But it really doesn't matter how I feel about them personally. What I do know is they're making the global elitists sweat. Yeah, I know that's hard to believe, but yeah, that's what's happening. And because of this, you're seeing all these hit pieces and horror stories about China, whether it's Muslim concentration camps, or organ harvesting, or Hong Kong repression, or Huawei spying, or debt trap diplomacy, etc., etc. Okay? These are all CIA talking points. And yes, there's heavy censorship and surveillance state stuff going on over there. The thing is, the reason they're doing these things is to prevent regime change in their country. Yeah, I know that sounds strange, but that's the reason they're doing it. I don't particularly like it, but again, it doesn't matter how I feel about it, right? And here are more facts. The Chinese are one of the oldest civilizations on the planet. Okay, they've survived things that are 50 to 100 times worse than what we've ever gone through on our worst days. Okay, they lifted more people out of poverty than the USA has people living in it. Okay, they're actually helping other countries get back on their feet, which does more to reduce terrorism on this planet. You know, something the US military-industrial complex doesn't want. Okay. Okay, they have the largest middle class on the planet. They have the smartest kids on the planet. Okay, their military is rapidly improving. Even the Pentagon admits this. Okay, short of all-out nuclear war, we're not going to stop China. We can slow them down, but we're not going to stop them. Even Vladimir Putin has stated that it can't be done. So, you know, I suppose you could try to boycott made-in-China products, but then you wouldn't be able to do anything. Okay? You might as well be living in a cave. Barefooted, even. But yeah, anyway, that's all I have for you for the time being. And things are going to get even more intense from here on out.